Episode 3 of Africa is called Congo, and it's all about the rainforests in West Africa, specifically around the Congo. So this episode opens up with a little montage of the interior of the forests, talking about how dangerous it is. You get loads of little fleeting glimpses of various animals, and the first major bit of footage we get follows chimpanzees harvesting honey from a bee colony. So this is interesting enough. It starts off with the bees, it kind of lures you into a sense of security thinking you're going to follow the bees for a bit, but no, it's actually about the chimpanzees getting the honey. I'm going to be honest with you, this was the bit I was the least excited for when the series came out, because I don't really care that much about chimpanzees. They're in loads of things. It kind of felt a bit obligatory that it was in here at all, because this is a series that deals with mainly new stuff. This is a rare occasion where you get a pretty well filmed animal in there, but it's fine. I mean, it's not something we've seen them do before. That one chimpanzee fishing for honey is quite cool. It doesn't go on for too long as well, so it's fine, but it is probably the part of the episode that I like the least, maybe. But that's just me, that's just a personal thing. And from there we kind of see the forest floor. We see that when there's a gap in the canopy, all these plants rush to try and overtake each other to become the dominant tree. We've seen that loads before in other series. To be fair, as much as I love this series, it's been done better in subsequent ones just because of the advancements in technology, but you know, it's still fine. However, then we talk about the African rock python. So this is an animal that is pretty cool. Pythons are pretty famous among snakes. I think they're one of the most famous types of snakes, and they're pretty impressive. They're massive, obviously. They're the biggest predator in that rainforest, apparently. And yet, despite being so famous, it's not an animal that gets a lot of love in these series, like most of the animals that pop up in this series. We see this massive python slithering through the forest floor. They ham up how intimidating it is, and you get a lot of close-ups of it, especially its head, which reinforces that this is a really big, scary, powerful animal. And we see it basking in the sun, and it's getting to the point where it's actually pretty dangerous for it, because it's overheating. And we see that this female is actually nurturing her eggs, but because they're in a burrow, they're not getting that much heat, so she's got to bring the heat to them by basking for ridiculously long periods of time. Again, really putting herself at risk to bring the heat back for them. And she's doing this like every day for like 3 months. Pretty horrendous stuff. You can tell it takes a toll on her as well, but it's kind of worth it for when her eggs hatch. You see the little pythons slithering around, and they're kind of cute. And we see that even then, she's still kind of looking after them. They'll go to her for warmth even then. It's pretty rare for reptiles to look after their young. We say the crocodilians, there's not too many cases where that's the case. But this is a pretty rare one, and it's quite interesting. And I think they did a good job of subverting your expectations, like they do most of the time in this series, by making the python really big and scary, but actually showing you quite a tender moment with it. I thought that was really cool. That's definitely one of the more memorable parts of the episode for me. Then we go back to talk about the forest floor. We see that when trees are fruiting, all the animals in the canopy, they knock a lot of seeds down to the ground, and loads of animals get them. Things like small antelope, red river hogs, they're pretty cool. You get a little glimpse of them, and they're alright. Then we kind of start to talk about kind of the geography, I guess. We see the rainforest is so good at generating its own weather system. Obviously, a lot of water vapour rises from the trees, which then creates these vast storms. So this is obviously the wettest place in Africa by, you know, a pretty sizable margin. Most of Africa is pretty dry, and that's really good for frogs. We get this extended sequence of this frog. It's not named, but it's some kind of tree frog. So we see these tree frogs try to rise to the top of the canopies. The males are basically competing for mates, and the higher they climb, the better chance they've got is mating. We see this one frog try to ascend. It's quite a fun little sequence. I remember it being a lot longer the first time around watching it. It wasn't quite as, you know, spectacular as I remember that being, but it was still interesting. It was still a fun little bit of footage. And we see that when a lot of rains come, parts of the forest actually flood. Various fish that would come in from the neighbouring rivers are able to go into the forest and hunt insects. We see a butterfly fish, which is quite cool, but in turn is food for a Congo bashir, which almost catches it. However, it leaps out of the water. Again, how it got its name, the butterfly fish, and is able to escape capture. That was quite cool. I kind of forgot about that, to be honest, going in. But when they said butterfly fish, I thought, it's going to jump out the water, isn't it? Despite being a bit predictable, I thought that was still really cool. And it was another really good part of the episode as well. And I think it is basically a callback to Attenborough's very first series, Zoo Quest, where it is basically a callback to Attenborough's very first series, Zoo Quest. And again, it's not a particularly, you know, exciting animal, but it was just really nice to see it. And I think the novelty of it being there was actually almost better than the footage itself, but the footage was still pretty cool as well. It was this pair, they're building their nest, they're going to raise their chicks. The female's definitely more experienced than the male, and the male's just really incompetent throughout the sequence. It's quite funny. It's definitely one of the funnier sequences in the episode. But we see when the chicks come, the dad's pretty good, you know, he pulls his way at the end. So it was all nice in the end. It was just really cool. Again, it was nice seeing Picathartes, because it's just a really cool looking animal, even if the type animal isn't that cool. And again, it was just nice for me to go, I know about Zoo Quest. Maybe if you didn't know so much about Zoo Quest, you might not have appreciated that quite as much. But I had, and I did. So yeah, I liked that. And then we follow the river downstream. We see that the rivers are actually quite vast. Again, quite a lot of water in this rainforest. And we see that when the rivers kind of die down a little bit, it's really good for skimmers. They look a bit like terns, although they've got these little jutted out bottom jaws. They say they're coastal, but you actually see them all over Africa and wetlands. It's really nice seeing them, because you don't see them at all in series, and they're pretty weird looking animals. You know, we see them out there using that really impressive beak to catch fish, and they actually lay their eggs here. But because there's a pretty short window, the chicks have basically got to get to maturity, and have got to be able to fly off before the river gets back to full strength. They're trying to learn how to fly and how to skim, but their bottom jaw isn't quite as elongated yet. So they're basically just making do with, pretty ineffective tools. And I quite enjoyed it. Again, skimmers, they look cool, but the whole point of it wasn't just that they looked cool, it's that they were doing something kind of interesting. So yeah, I like that. It was pretty cool as well. Then we talk about forest elephants. Obviously, forest elephants are the biggest animals in the forest. I know we talked about elephants a lot in the last episode, but these are different species, and forest elephants do not get anywhere near the amount of screen time as African bush elephants, or Asian elephants, to be fair. So it was actually nice that we got a good extended look at them. This is definitely the longest part of the episode, and pretty much forest elephants are on the rest of the episode. Basically see them following through the pathways they make at night, and they're going towards this big clearing. It's called Jebele Bai. It basically translates to the village of elephants, and it was just nice seeing all the elephants interacting. Again, you could say it's a little bit similar to what we got in the last episode, but because you don't see forest elephants really at all, I was just totally enthralled with it, even if they were doing the same things. Like, we see the elephants fighting. Again, it was still really cool here. And the elephants mating as well. They actually did a good job of highlighting elephant behaviour in this species by talking about that young bull male who's still, pretty big and pretty stocky in must. Because must is like the worst time to encounter an elephant. They do a good job of highlighting just how, horrific this must can be to be around. Like, this elephant's just attacking everyone. He's trying to shag everything as well. We see him mating with the female. I've got to say, if you are a really sick person who's into elephant porn, then I'm sure this episode will do it for you, because there's a pretty extended sequence of the male with a very massive penis mating the female. I was like, we're still here, we're still showing this. Okay, but no, it was a really cool sequence, and again, the fight at the end was pretty cool, as I've said before. That young male gets chased off because, let's be honest here, he had no business being here, so it was good that he got chased off. And the last big bit of footage we get is at the beach. We see that this forest is pretty much impenetrable, and it's basically unstoppable until it hits the coast, and it's kind of weird to see that. You then see a lot of forest animals on the beach, which is very strange. Like, you see buffalo, hippos. For some reason, I found the imagery of the hippos in the surf pretty weird to look at. I don't know why it is that I found that so weird, because I'm used to seeing them in water anyway, like, that's where hippos live. But I'm used to seeing them in freshwater. Seeing them in the sea was kind of like, really? Alright, cool. Elephants, of course, gorillas as well. The spray makes a lot of the vegetation in the area quite salty, which is nice for the animals. And the last couple of shots is very impactful, I think, because it makes this out to be a kind of paradise. They've got the best of both worlds. They're by the beach, it's nice for everyone. But the animals still choose to go back to the forest, because ultimately the forest is their home. And while it's obviously a massive, massive romanticism, which I usually have a problem with in these series, I actually quite like it. It's just nice. And I had a wee smile on my face, so yeah, that's quite cool. Really good way of ending the episode. And then we get the diaries. It's all about the people filming the chimpanzees and the elephants. More the chimpanzees, though. It was alright. You basically saw the toll it was taking this guy just to find the chimpanzees. He looked like he was going a bit doolally by then. He was certainly losing a lot of weight. And that was quite fun. And the guy in the tree, when the elephants were there at night, was pretty scary, actually, because they were attacking the tree, trying to knock him out. So that was pretty cool as well. Again, another pretty good diary sequence from this series. So yeah, this episode is, once again, it's a pretty good episode. Highlights for me: the elephants at the end are pretty cool. The beach at the end is really good. The python, the skimmers, they're probably the big bits, but there's a lot in here to like, to be fair. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you thought of this episode, what were your highlights, let me know. And I'll be doing the next one next week, which is all about the Cape, so look forward to that. And as ever, feel free to like, comment and subscribe, or don't if you don't want to. It's perfectly fine. And I'll see you next time, and goodbye.